Hello, so welcome to another reading vlog. This week I'm trying to catch up on my October TBR, even though tomorrow, when I'm mainly going to start reading, it's going to be November. Tomorrow being Wednesday, and then I'll try and finish by Sunday, but the books I need to finish is all of these, so we'll see if it turns out to be realistic. Firstly, I do have Crown of Stars, which I started reading the audiobook of last week, but it's a 23-hour audiobook, so I've still got a bit more to go. It's kind of an epic fantasy where everybody's fighting over the throne, and there's also some strange magical elements thrown in there. Actually very similar to Game of Thrones, but maybe less dark, probably less dark. So I'll be continuing that. And then as well, I have two short story anthologies. One, which is graphical, Junji Ito tomes. So Junji Ito does a lot of like horror manga, really creepy stuff, and I'm expecting more from this. I think I counted, but let's count again because my memory sucks. There are 9 stories in this, so I'm going to try and read 2 a day, and we'll see how that goes. Then as well, for this one, we have The Girl Who Heard Dragons by McCaffrey. What my sister has told me is that actually only the first story is set in Pern with the Dragons of Pern, and then the rest are like more science fiction short stories, and I like a lot of Anne McCaffrey's more science fiction stuff, so I'm hoping I'll like that. I will say, the Pern stories, even though they're dragons, are science fiction really, or eventually. So this one, how many short stories does it have? I think I worked out I need to read 3 a day. Oh yep, 5 days, and there are 15 stories. So I'll try and read 3 a day and we will see. Tomorrow I do have my infusion in the morning where I go and sit in a chair with a drip in my arm for like 3 hours. So an hour per short story should be doable, right? Even though I'm usually really terrible at reading during my infusion or like focusing, but I think I could do it. So I'll take that along, and then I'll try and read these in the afternoon. Then after that, we've got a concert we're going to. So for us, that's a really busy day, but I will try to keep to my targets. As well, somewhere along the way, I will try and fit in The Night Eaters by Marjorie and Sana Takeda. So Marjorie and Sana Takeda are the creators of the monstrous graphic novel that I really like. This one, I kind of have forgotten about what it's about. Some kind of twins that are really struggling, and then they have to bring in their parents to help, even though they don't really want to because of some kind of magical element to do with their parents. Anyway, hopefully all of these will be fun. This one especially, I think. Oh, and maybe this one. I'm mostly excited for the graphics in this vlog.
Pick it up from the top, hit restart. So far it's been so hard to live, but lately something in me changed. Let it go, let it be. Don't fight your way back in. Let me go, let me be. It's time that we begin. Welcome to a new life. Dripping in gold, that's nice. Welcome to a new life. Everything feels so right till I opened up my eyes. I thought I was defeated, but all I ever needed was just a little space and time to open up the ceiling, a different kind of healing. I feel alive. Can you feel it? I can feel it. I feel alive. Can you feel it? I can feel it.
Hello, so it is now the day after the day after our big day. I needed a day to recuperate. Also, I've only read kind of a day's worth of what I was targeting to read. So we're going to treat that as just a day. And if this vlog goes a day over, that's fine. Or maybe I'll catch up at some point. Or not. Whatever. So I did at my infusion actually only manage to read one short story from The Girl Who Purred Dragons. In fact, I read the title story. Admittedly, that is the longest one, so it took me a while to read it because it was longer, you know? I do really wish that I had read that short story back in the day when I was deep into my Pern reading, like when I first picked up The Dragons of Pern and I just read like the first 10 or 12 books without stopping because I was so interested in the world and in everything that was happening. Having some distance from that, like I know a lot of the characters that our main character runs into are main characters from the main world, but like I remember Fla and Fnor and Lesser because of course they're the main characters, but there were also definitely mentions of other characters and I've forgotten the full like ramifications of their stories that were important context for this, and it kind of covers it but not completely. So pretty much the girl we're following is this girl who's kind of a refugee, kind of living on the run to some degree because as well she can hear dragons, and that's an ability that some people want to try and take advantage of. So they're on the run and then things happen that involves dragons, of course. I will say the bit that's sticking with me the most about this book is there is a part where her and her family go and they find this cave that they can stay in or that they can shelter in, and she's imagining how great it would be if they could stay in this cave and live in this cave. And then she says to herself, like, don't be so greedy, you know, expecting to have a cave that you could just stay in and have a cave for your family. And just the idea that having a cave to live in could be considered greedy. But honestly, that's the life that some refugees are living. So I think if you like The Dragons of Pern and you've been reading those books recently, try and fit this one in the part in the story where it's supposed to go. Oh, the other thing I will actually say on the front of this, it says including 24 interior works of art by Michael Whelan. Like, some of the art is really cool. Like, I think I showed a few when I was getting my infusion, but some are just like really basic scribbly sketches. Like, you know, there's this one which is just like a guy, and then there's this one which I don't know, I mean they're fine but they're not amazing art, are they? Maybe that's mean to say. Anyway, then I read the next two short stories during our recuperation day. The first one was kind of a science fiction about these people who have been given a contract on this planet to do the farming there, and there's already existing cities on this planet but they don't know where the people went. So they start living there. There's these murals which show or appear to show people worshipping these trees, and they're really confused because they can't find any of these trees on the planet, but eventually they figure out what's going on, and the way that it was written was really interesting. I kind of like it when short stories are written in that way, but I can't tell you anything about it because it would, like, it's the kind of story you need to go in not knowing what's going to happen. I'm trying to remember what the third short story was. Oh yeah, the third one's another one that's really hard to talk about. It's basically this interviewer interviewing this like opera star about this performance that she was at physically, but a lot of other people only heard on the radio. And on the radio, the performance was terrible. And the interviewer's trying to get to like the truth of whether the real performance was really as great as people who were physically there say. And there's kind of a hint of some other things that might have been going on. So they're interesting. I will say, I do think Anne McCaffrey's writing is not the easiest to read. I don't know if it's just because it's older, but I often feel like the sentences are written in like an overcomplicated way, like unnecessarily complex. And I'm like, can you not just say what you're saying? And it's not like it's written to be beautiful. It's written, I don't know. I think it's just trying to come across as intellectual, but I just get frustrated because I know that there's easier ways to say things, and I actually think intellectual people, like actually smart people, speak simply. Anyway, I will try and read 3 more of them today so that I can not fall further behind the target. I did also read Tombs. Yes, Tombs, not Tomes. I don't know why I was saying that the other day. I did read the first 2 stories in Tombs and I really liked them. This is the kind of Junji Ito I really love. So the first one, the title story again is about this town that this brother and sister go to, and in this town, whenever anyone dies, a tomb will be built or something in the position that they died, but there is an accident as this brother and sister arrive in town and things kind of escalate from there. I just really liked the escalation of it. It's not necessarily much of an escalation in terms of what's happening, but it's like an emotional escalation and like everything kind of going wrong for this brother and sister. So I really liked that. And then the next one is kind of a haunted house story, which again, I really liked how it escalated. Although the ending was very abrupt, it didn't really conclude things. But at the very end, I feel like it gave you the feeling of what might be about to happen. And so maybe it's even good that it didn't give you that conclusion and you just have to keep having that feeling. So I'm really enjoying the way that this one is making me feel. The only other thing I have read since I last talked to you is I've read some more of Crown of Stars. I think I've honestly only got like 4.5 hours left of the audiobook at 2x speed. So that would be 9 hours, I guess, real speed. So I'm like past halfway. I, though, don't remember what happened since I last talked to you. And at this point, I really think I'm just waiting to see how things will end. I have started kind of imagining what kind of endings for these characters would make me feel satisfied. Because I still don't really know what the end game is for this story. As I've said, I can't see how it could be a happily ever after. But if it's not a happily ever after, like why wouldn't the story just continue? Anyway, I guess I'll probably update you on this one when I've actually finished it. Okay, so firstly, let me update you on Crown of Stars, which I have just finished. To be honest, maybe that's not the best idea because I don't know if I've really put my thoughts together yet. Have I? I guess what I felt like is things did kind of come together in the end. I feel like maybe it could have been structured in a way that all those things coming together could have had a bigger impact, just because there were so many pieces that were introduced like throughout the series that came together, and I felt like I'd forgotten some of those things, and also just the way that some of those things were explained felt a bit laborious, but I kind of did like the conclusion. I thought it was good. But then there was this quite long, drawn-out epilogue type thing. I don't know if it was actually labeled an epilogue. Maybe I should have a look at my physical book. It looks like there is a decent epilogue at the end, but I also felt like some of the stuff that was happening before that still felt kind of epilogue-y to me. And like it's kind of jumped ahead to the children and like giving you what's happened in the long run, which again, I could see people being interested in that who really love this series, but I don't really like those kind of epilogues, so I could have done without that. But like overall, I think this came together really well, and I think like there's a lot of really cool concepts and ideas and really interesting characters in here, but I just wish the story had been told a little bit differently because I think I could have gotten a lot more out of it, but it could also be just my fault for taking so long to get through this series. But overall, I think I still liked it. I probably need to sit with it for a while. Then, what else? Next on my stack, I have Tombs. So this, I read the next 2 stories, and I'm loving this anthology. The first one I read was Slug Girl, and all you need to know is it's about slugs. And it's awful. And then there was another one, I think it's called The Woman in the Window. Oh, The Window Next Door. So basically they move into this house which only has this one tiny window and no one's ever seen the person inside. And then eventually this young boy who's moved into the house who gets to see the woman in the window. And again, it's awful and terrifying. I'm really enjoying this anthology, like a lot. I cannot wait to read the next story. Then, The Girl Who Heard Dragons. So this one, I've read 3 of the stories from this. All the 3 I read this time were from Anne McCaffrey's like Brain Ships universe. So the Brain Ships universe is one where I think it's people's brains, but I think sometimes maybe they still have other bits of their bodies, I'm not sure, but their brains basically get installed in a spaceship, a bit like the Bobaverse books in some ways, but with less technology, I guess, but with different technology. I was actually wondering whether the term artificial intelligence had been talked about during the time that these stories were written, and I think it was. However, there was a bit, where was it? I'll never find it. There was a bit where it talked about the acronym AI, but it talked about it as the part of absolute importance on a man. And I kind of wondered if that was Anne McCaffrey making a bit of a dig at artificial intelligence, or trying to say something about artificial intelligence. I could definitely say something about artificial intelligence and that piece of a man. Anyway, basically the 3 stories are set in that world, but only the first story had an actual brain chip as a character, and this brain chip basically goes with this like Catwoman on this like secret mission, which was quite interesting. Then the next one, I need to read the titles of these to remember what they were. The next one, actually the next 2 had to do with sleeping. So we had a sleeping Humpty Dumpty Beauty, where basically there is this guy who sustains injuries in this space battle, and then the surgeon does like miracle surgery to save him. However, he just keeps sleeping, even though like technically he seems to be fine, but he just keeps sleeping and never waking up. And there's some references to Sleeping Beauty and Humpty Dumpty. And then the next one was called, I should just keep this page open, The Mandalay Curse. So I don't know if that's meant to be like a reference to Rebecca. Isn't Rebecca Mandalay? I think it's spelled different. It's probably a reference to something else that's gone over my head. But anyway, this one was also sleeping, but it's hard to talk about. Basically, it's about a spaceship of people who are just very motivationally tired. They've been in this war, and now it looks like they're going to have to go back to war again, and the commanding officers are just like, this is not going to work, our men are too tired, and they come up with a solution that's related to sleeping. The only thing I felt a bit weird with this one was that it started out talking about like the life support officer trying to deal with the fact that there was a smell in the spaceship that they couldn't get rid of, and that never really got dealt with, which was weird. But I guess short stories, you're not always going to wrap things up. I still struggle with Anne McCaffrey's writing a little bit, but I am getting more used to it, I think, as I go through. So I will try and read some more of these tonight, and again, update you probably tomorrow. Okay, so I'm now 2 days behind, maybe a day and a half behind on my reading target, but we don't care. But I have read another 3 of these and another 2 of these, so we are making progress. Firstly, the 3 I read in here, what were they? Oh, so firstly, I was really excited because it seemed like it was going to be like a time travel one. It's like this situation where there's regular time storms or something, and the only people who are able to, like, I don't really know, survive it, something, are basically these people who go into this cave, and then the storms will happen and they will wake up in a new place in time. And we're really following this one perspective of this woman who is able to feel when the storms are coming and when they're happening, and she's really just brutal in terms of like getting rid of anyone from the caves that she doesn't find useful, and just like really has her own agenda. And so it sets this all up, and then it's the end. I honestly said, what the fuck? That's the end? Like, I don't know. It was really cool until that was the end. Nothing happened. Then the next one was actually really interesting. So it had a little note that it was written in 1956, and why that's relevant is the story is actually about like the first like surrogate mother. So like one person's baby being implanted into another woman and being born that way. Except in this case, the couple's sister is giving birth to the baby or being the surrogate for the baby. But this is the first time this has ever been done, and it's kind of all done on the down low because it wouldn't technically be allowed probably, even though it's not also not technically illegal. But like when it does happen, there's a lot of like social misunderstandings around what's happened, and like the wife's mother is really awful, and it was just really interesting. I expect that a lot of the science that was talked about was more like theoretical and probably is very different from how it actually works, but it was definitely interesting to see like a more historical perspective of something that now already happens. And then the very last one I read was this one about this girl who has always wanted to work with horses, but this is in a future where there's not really any horses around, so she's only done like simulation training, and she has then gotten an opportunity to go and work on this planet where they have horses and work with horses, and it's just about her training to be a horse person and like trying to succeed on her trial in this position. So it's kind of like a horse girl but in space, or in a future where there's not many horses. Kind of interesting too. Still, the writing, I do find it hard to get through, which is why I'm behind. But the ideas are really interesting. Then I read a couple more from tomes, and I'm going to read the titles to remember. Wait, Do I remember? Oh, I remember what they were about. Firstly, we had this one, I don't remember the names, washed ashore, where basically this horrible sea creature washes ashore, and then what they discover about it is really gross. I just think sometimes Junji Ito is so good at like that really gross body horror. And the story, there isn't really much to the story, but the concept was interesting and just like bleh, horrible, especially because like I don't like fish, especially fish swimming around. Anyway, the main character also doesn't like fish. Actually, the main character doesn't like the ocean, but I do like the ocean, just like looking at it, you know? And then the next one was called The Strange Tale of the Tunnel. So this is about this town where there's a tunnel, and some people feel really drawn to this tunnel and like go there for no reason. And this young man is talking about kind of his experiences with the tunnel. I don't think that was the scariest of the ones in this so far, but it was still good. So I will try and catch up on some more of these tonight. I also think I might try and read some of this, but we'll see. Hello. So yesterday I had to take my car to get it to Warren Fitness, and the queue was super long, but while I was waiting in the queue, I read my book, and so I actually managed to finish this. That's how long the queue was, because I'm not getting through this fast. So I read 6 more stories. The first 3 that I read honestly felt kind of nonsensical. I really felt like I was just missing out on a lot of context. Like maybe these were stories set with characters and like world building elements that had already been established, but I tried to look them up and I don't really think they were. So there was one kind of with the space crew, and the cis admin like makes a hologram of his perfect girl, and there's also these weird competitions going on. I don't know what the point of that was. There was another one kind of around these people in like the South of America during the Civil War over slavery, and they have these slaves that work on like their horse racehorse breeding farm, I don't really know, and then these slaves that they've gotten in help them out with keeping these horses safe. I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of think that some of the ways that racism was dealt with in it weren't the best. And McCaffrey, I think, has said, written, done some questionable things over the years. She's an older woman. She's dead now. So she's not. So, you know, a product of its time, probably. Then I feel like you can tell that Anne McCaffrey tries, even though she doesn't always get it right. Then there was another one, I've forgotten already. Oh yeah, there was one where it's like this fancy ball happening on this space station on a planet, and this girl sneaks in with like this dress that's like made of mist that like sticks to her using some kind of engine something, and all the guys are trying to dance with her, and it's kind of a Cinderella retelling, but again, no real point to it. But then the last 3 that I read, firstly there was one with a horse basically waiting for his owner to come out, and it becomes clear that his owner is dying, and it made me cry, so that was sad. But also I feel like there's probably a lot of similar stories out there. It's probably not too original, and like just kind of an easy way to make people cry, really. Then, why do I keep forgetting? Oh yeah, then there was one where this woman moves to the country with her children after her husband dies, and there's something strange in the house. It didn't quite have as much of a conclusion as I wanted. I think that's just me in short stories. And then the very last one, actually went back to the same world as the previous story, where there's like these time shift storms, and these people in these caves are like going from time to time, and there's this woman Chloe who's kind of like can tell when the time storms are coming, and if she wants to get rid of people, she'll like send them off and then not call them back in time to get into the cave. And we're following primarily this young boy who's kind of her protege, who can also tell when the time shifts are coming. And those stories are just so weird because it feels like, again, there's a bigger context. And I was trying to find out, like, did she ever write some bigger stories about this? It doesn't seem like it. But like those short stories just seem to set up something really interesting and then not really do anything with it. So overall, I think there were some really cool ideas in this. There were definitely short stories that I wish had been expanded to be more full worlds. And there were stories in her existing worlds as well. So like, it wasn't perfect, but there were some stories that were definitely worth reading. What else? I don't think I've read any more of Tombs since I last talked to you, but I will read that. Probably I'll finish them off tonight, as well as... Oops, I've just made a massive mess and probably a massive noise for you. Anyway, I read the first half of Night Eaters, and honestly, I feel like I don't know what's happening yet. We're following these two young twins who run a restaurant, and probably what's the most interesting about this is that it's set during COVID times. So like everyone's wearing masks, and the mother refuses to wear a mask and is always smoking, and they're like, "Mom, what are you doing?" But yeah, because their restaurant business was struggling a bit during COVID, their parents have come over from Hong Kong to look after them or to like help out, even though they seem to be mostly doing okay. And the younger daughter, who had dropped out of med school, is always trying to say, you know, "Mum, even though maybe we haven't done everything you wanted us to do, maybe you could still be proud of us and appreciate our successes." And the mum kind of just thinks that they're pretty useless. The mum seems to be pretty badass. We are getting flashbacks to the 50s when she was young and like a stunt double. But also there's this strange house across the road from them that the mother is now saying, "Look, you kids really need to toughen up. So you're going to come over across the road and help me out with sorting out this house." And we're starting to learn about some strange stuff to do with that house. So it's all an interesting setup, but I don't really know where it's going. Okay, so it is time to wrap up this vlog because my catch-up week is well and truly over. It's now Wednesday of the following week, although I think I started late anyway. It's like the 8th. So yesterday I finished reading the last two of these two. So let me tell you about them. Firstly, there are 3 stories of Tombs that I haven't told you about. And as usual with short stories, I don't remember what they were. Oh, so there was one where there's kind of like the mayor and his wife have these statues in the park, and then you learn some creepy stuff about those statues, and the mayor's wife, especially the way she's using the statues, gets really gross. Like, it's more of Junji Ito really escalating things. As well, then the next story was really about, I wanted to try and find a picture of it, like this town where these little black things start floating around, and we learn like what are those little black things, and it gets quite creepy again. Then the last one. The last one is basically following this doctor as he goes to this remote town where everyone is really anemic, and when you learn why they're anemic, it's really gross. I never know how much to say about these, but yeah, that last one especially, I really enjoyed it. So I think, which were my favorite stories? Definitely Slug Girl. I think Washed Ashore will stick with me just because of the fishy element. And then that last one. What? But I think actually this is one of the best Junji Ito anthologies that I've read. I'd still say Uzumaki is my favorite, but this is maybe my second favorite. I really liked all the stories in this one. Then as well, I did finish off reading Night Eaters. I have to tell you, I think it's really cool, but also I don't think I really understand it. It's kind of like everything that's happening makes sense, but I just feel like I'm missing some explanations. Like, it feels like the characters understand what's going on before I do. And can I even talk about anything that happened in the end of this book? Not really. We just learn more about the mother and the father of these twins, and they learn more about their mother and father. And like, there were parts where the art was quite cute. I would say, like, I don't think any of these pages were amazingly epic, like with Monstrous, which is the main thing that Sana Takeda and Marjorie create that I really like. But I do think it's quite an interesting story just of like generations, and maybe like how learning about your family could give you strength, maybe. It was interesting. It did make me want to continue. So there is another book. It's actually just come out at the beginning of October. So that's convenient timing, since it's a complete fluke that I just picked this up now. I have put a request in at my library to get that as well. So we will see. And yeah, so that has been my week of reading. A lot of shorter stories, which I don't always love, but actually I really liked Tombs. The Night Eater was interesting, and The Girl Who Heard Dragons was a little bit of a mixed bag, but there were some really interesting stories in there. So let me know if you know any other short story type things that might be like these ones. I would love to get some recommendations, even though I have no time to read extra things, but still. Give me your recommendations and let me know what you've been reading lately that you've been enjoying. I'd also appreciate it if you would subscribe if you'd like to watch more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.